Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tools and Tactics. We're watching participants sign in right now. I appreciate you joining us today. It's been an interesting week. Bob and I were just talking about all the webinars out there, so I appreciate you taking the time to join ours. There's definitely a lot of choices, is the way I'll put it right now. I was very excited about this webinar with Bob today as everyone is signing in. I met Bob, gosh, Bob, did we meet each other? Has it been 2 years now?
It's been a while. Podcasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Bob and I were introduced by a colleague of ours, and I did a podcast with him, and it was just an immediate connection. You just knew that you were meant to work together, is the way I would put it. I respect Bob immensely. He has got a wealth of information. He has, I would definitely call you one of my mentors. He's definitely got good ideas, and so I'm excited for him to present to everybody today. Bob is concentrating on financial services, working with his clients, but he does a lot of other things with them as well. That is not just his number one gig. So Bob, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us today. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, let you present.
Well, thanks, Marla. I really appreciate the opportunity. And, kindred spirits, we're both business owners. I'm a fan of business owners, have been for a long time. I started a podcast so I could start recording the wisdom of many of the business owners, and it's called Business Leaders Podcast. We do it more to capture the wisdom and share it than anything else. And the good part for me is I get tutored by really smart business owners, usually once a week or so. And it's the gamut. So that's kind of the background a little bit. And Marla, is the front page on that okay, where everybody can see it?
Yes, we can see your
Cool.
screen. Mm-hmm.
For you guys out there, really, what we're trying to do is I have an inventory of ideas, and like Marla and I were talking about before, says I'm really good at thinking up things for somebody else to do. And so for the purpose of this, if you get just one thing, then cool, that we got the job done that we were looking for. If you get more than one idea, excellent. So what we're going to go through today is there's going to be 9 tactics, 8 tools, and 45 minutes. And so it's a little bit like a sip from a fire hose. And so what I'm trying to do is just provide inventory. So this is kind of start where you are, work with what you have, and focus on what you can control. It's kind of like the shut down, sit up, or was it shut up, sit down, and hold on? One of those deals. And so for here, this is me this morning. This is what it looks like when I come to work every morning. You got the market on. I've got all the news and notes and everything that's happened. And I go, and a lot of times there'll be an event that happens overnight that will take you out of your whatever you left the office with the day before, whether it's a new case, a shutdown, a lockdown, the market crashes, any of the above. And so you go through, and what I do is I'll lean into a ritual. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with you guys. And, by way of background, I've been doing the wealth management world for over 30 years now. I own a few businesses right now, a storage facility, wealth practice, and a farm. I'm a certified exit planning advisor. I host Business Leaders Podcast. I served in the Army at Fort Carson here in Colorado Springs. So that's what brought me to Colorado, and married a local gal, which is what kept me here. So that's kind of my story. And what I do is the market's uncertain pretty much every day, the one that I deal in, and yours is too, I suspect. And so what I know is uncertainty is normal. So how do I sit down? And at the top of this is just my notebook. I divide it into pieces. This is my task for the day. This is anything I'm grateful for. And this is to remind me to call people that are important to me. And so on this particular day, I was grateful for the heater in the office, my dog that was in the office with me, and coffee. So it doesn't have to be a big thing. And then you go down the side and start setting your tasks that you must do. And so for me, what that does is when the market or uncertainty takes me out of my focus, I can recenter on my rules. And you come back and look at your rules and go, what are the most important things? And there's a guy named Gary Keller of Keller Williams And he says, what's the one thing such that by doing it makes everything else easier or unnecessary? And the short answer, it's kind of the low IQ infantry approach, is do that one, do the one thing, and for every single day, this is ideal where you could prepare and execute. Marla and I were talking about here before this call. It says maybe this is just the new normal, and rather than thinking all the times are extraordinary, just say it's normal now. And so what I do is I lean into my discipline. I lean into getting centered by the to-do list that you see on the screen. Um, and the one thing for sure that, in the equity markets and probably any other, is the markets are unique almost every day. But the people in the market are just the same. They have the same fears and herding mentality and so on. And they'll run from one side of the cruise ship to the other, if there's a bear on one side and an iceberg on the other. And so it's not atypical to see that kind of behavior. So for me, getting centered, lean into the discipline, check off your list. And maybe you don't accomplish 100% of your list during the course of the day, but if you accomplish enough of it, then that will matter. And so for me, that's kind of the gauge. Can I get it done? On the neuroscience, a lot of times, the SEALs do it and the Special Forces guys do it, and they're trained how to think properly. And really what happens a lot of times is you just get overwhelmed with the variables, you know, employee issues and client issues and vendor issues and lender issues and God only knows on regulatory side, or in this case, the virus, and we get these once in a lifetime events now almost every 10 years. When I came into the market in 1987, the market crashed. There was 1990 Gulf War, 1998 long-term capital, 2000 .com, 2008 credit cycle. Now we have this. And so when you get overwhelmed, just kind of take and move the finish line. And for me, I work in basically 30-minute blocks. The guys in the SEALs and Special Forces move in 5 and 10-minute blocks if they can. And so if I work in 30-minute blocks, can I get 30 minutes of good time? And I'm aware of 15 minutes. So I start really getting granular about how I think about what I'm doing, how I'm checking off my list, and I try to get the one thing done first, the most important piece. And then I feel like everything else is kind of downhill for the rest of the day. And I like to duck hunt, and that's my phone that I did not turn off. So when you feel powerless, sometimes you just get overwhelmed and it can't get any better. And what I did is I took a look at the number of clients that I have, and there's a number of them that make up 80% of the business. So I've set it up where I try to call 3 or 4 of those folks every single day and that's important, talk to the client. So I talk to the client. And then when you get done with that, you kind of go, okay, I've made progress, maybe not measurable, but it's the right behavior and activity. And then I listen to podcasts coming to work and going home. And for a lot of us, the news feed sells negative news. It's almost, it's somewhat challenging to find positive news amidst all of the noise that we have right now. And yet we have to have something on the other side that gives us something else to think about. And so whether you're learning a new skill, you're talking to somebody about the good news, there's a technique, those kind of things. And for me, intraday, if I get wrapped around the axle and can't quite get done, we've got stairwells here, I'll go run the stairwell. I'll go for a short walk if the weather's allowing, do push-ups or pet the dog. Any of those things where I can take some particular action that breaks the pattern if you're feeling out of control or just things are just bad news. If you're really feeling like you're the lone person on the island and go, it's just me and nobody else, and you get into that self-narrative and it's hard to break, call someone else, call an older client that might be home alone and lonesome, call your kids, call your loved ones. If you have a mastermind group or some people that you think are your mentors that will take and lift you up, or you can lift them up, then I think that's an appropriate thing to do. And, if you can step out and help somebody else, the neuroscience says it's a really good idea to do. And so that's something that I try to do. And a lot of times I'll just make a call and go, how you doing? How you hanging in there? And so it really helps. The sniff test, if you've got a marketing program that you had going on prior to all of this drama, It may be a bit tone deaf if you're trying to take and sell something or whatever. I saw this one yesterday or the day before, David Geffen talking about how he was quarantined somewhere down off the Grenadines on his $600 million yacht. And geez, I hope you guys are all well. I mean, that type of stuff really people won't forget. I don't think this guy will ever get over this. And, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. I would be very careful about being too salesy in this environment, you know, and what I think about in here is, you know, in tough times, you learn to serve, lead, and the character that you have shows up. And from the business owners that I've run across and know, it's the best bunch of folks that you could associate with. And they all are tough, smart, have a great deal of character, self-sacrificing, good family folks, and a pillar of the community. And that's what business leaders are and business owners are. And so don't be like this guy for sure. Um, Talking to your team, you know, whether it's the employees or the folks in the management side of the house, um, they're going to have a different insight than you have. Maybe there's some opportunity that's apparent to everybody else, but not apparent to you because you just got off the phone with the bank or a tough client that's having problems, you know, or like put your hat on backwards and go, you know, if I could find something good out of all of this stuff that's going on, what might that be? And so much of that is mindset and how you work on it. And if you're having trouble with mindset, there's a book in the resources piece from Carol Dweck, DWECK. She does a really, really good job about mindset focus, and it's all science-based. She's been around forever and highly regarded. So for me, probably the biggest disclaimer is I am a perpetual optimist. And so every time I look for adversity, I look for where's the opportunity, because there is an opportunity somewhere. And, you know, particularly in the equity markets, if something's going down, something else is going up, and you just got to be smart enough to find it and be disciplined. Um, you know, if you can't think of anything else to do, you know, are there problems that your existing clients have where you can pivot? And this is sort of an old term now. You hear a lot of folks pivoting, you know, you've got the restaurants doing different things and deliveries and so on, but maybe there's something different that you can do when you talk to your clients enough to understand what their problems are. And so I've been really busy. I'll talk to clients and go, what's your problem? And almost none of it has to do with the markets that I'm involved with. It's something else, family, interpersonal, or whatever. And so we talk about that at length to make sure that they're okay. I think clients right now, I mean, this particular presentation is really about trying to present solutions for you folks. And, you know, and folks are out there now looking for solution-based content, you know, how to do and what to do. Right now, Google and Facebook ads are really less expensive if you happen to be in that space. Might be an opportunity. If you've not surveyed your clients, you know, and if you're not really good at surveying, just take and either you or your team call 10 of them, put your survey list together. And if you don't know what to ask, Building a Story Brand, Don Miller, book's referenced in here as well. He'll talk about what you can do to clarify your message and make sure that you're surveying properly. And pretty soon you'll know what your clients' pain points are and what they need now. You know, serve the need, solve the problem. You can interview clients on Zoom. If you can, record with their permission. If you can, you know, and it's appropriate, post it to your site with your client's permission or on social media. You know, discover what their needs are. Maybe you'll hear something on a recording you wouldn't hear otherwise. Highlight the successes. You know, on the sales teams that you have, maybe you have those folks reach out on Zoom interviews with your clients to hear what they're doing to help their customers. Compile the best ideas, share them with your other clients. There's a thing called Flip Snack. You can make a flip book, convert the audio presentation to text, and create a book to share. I started a podcast. It's obviously not that difficult if I can do it, so you can always start your own. Interview your clients and your prospects or business owners. Share that information with the person you interviewed, and they can share it on their social media. You can share it on yours and promote. You can be on my podcast if you want. There's no expense other than the time it takes you to be on there. We give you the audio, the video, we convert the audio and video to text. You get the blog post. If you want, I'll turn it into a flip book for you. So if it helps you with what you're doing, or if it helps you getting the word out in the community of how you're helping, glad to do it. All of these things are positioning yourself as a thought leader where you become a center of influence. So during the crisis and after, people will remember what you did. And if you were a center of influence, I think that's good for your business. As you're sitting there, and if you've done all these things and you kind of going, I still feel sort of stuck, review your process. There's the need to do versus the nice to do. Forget the nice to do and do the need to do. Understand your critical few, your clients, your lenders, and your vendors. Write them down and check them off and make sure you review. And if you're going through the end of the week in the military, when we'd come out of the field, we had an after action report. Would you go back? What did I do well? What could I improve on? What should I do? And so if you're really trying to take and get out, not be stuck in the mud, have an after action report that you do with yourself and make sure that you're evaluating, the effectiveness of where you are, where you missed, where you won, and pat yourself on the back. Forgive yourself for the things that you didn't get done and go get them again. I mean, and so 60% of tasks done are better than no percent. And so you can track those numbers. Video communication, we're doing Zoom on the conference call. It's become extremely popular. If you're not using video telecommunications of some kind, you're probably going to stick out by omission. I would recommend that you start if you haven't. Zoom's really simple to do. If you're doing some videos and you want to put out a short video on your site, there's a piece of software called Content Samurai. You can literally take a blog post, drag it into there. It will turn it into a video. It'll set the slide selection up for you. You can narrate it yourself. And I don't have any affiliation with those folks, but it is brain dead simple to create a really cool video if you need to. And so under the tool side, and guys, I'm going fast into a vacuum. I'm aware that time is precious. So if we finish early and you have questions, cool. And if we finish early and you don't have any questions, that's cool too. One of the things that you can do to reach audiences, and we're all under lockdown or we're semi-essential people, be a guest on other people's podcasts, reach their audience with your message. There are podcast booking agencies that will do that for you. And so it's a really good way if you have a message that you would like to get out, you can be a guest. You can offer a helpful resource, which then works further toward building your email list. You can be a guest, like I said before, on my podcast. You can start your own podcast. In the military, they used to say you take over the TV, the radio, the newspaper. Well, if you do a podcast, that's your radio. If you do the video of it, that's your TV station. If you do a blog post, that's the newspaper. So that works pretty well. Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, has a free course on his site. And again, no affiliation with any of these guys that I recommend. If you need an autoresponder to build your email list, MailChimp will do that. I think they have something free for the beginning. SurveyMonkey's good for surveying your clients. You can see what they need. You can use Calendly for time blocking your day. Zoom we've talked about. There's even a link on here from Forbes on how to use it properly. If you do a bunch of this and you go, I'm not good at creating content, take your video, drag it into SpeechPad. They charge, I don't know, $1 a minute. It'll transcribe it and you can take and repurpose all of that content into smaller bites and put it out. Again, we talked about Content Samurai. Believe it or not, Zoom can now be hacked. And there's a piece on here, how to avoid being hacked. All right, there's a guy that was a gift, a Dr. Cooper. And he was talking about psychology when you're going into an event. And what he decided to do is work with guys that are running 800 meters. And so he would take these runners and they would do a baseline set of runs until he knew what it was. Then he would go to them and give them one thing to say, one mental prompt. And all he said was, you got this. He said, tell yourself you got this. And he said the times improved 13 to 15% per runner with that one phrase. And so if you find yourself, either going into a tough presentation or talking to a lender or a vendor or a big prospect, take and use the phrase and say, you got this. Sounds simple, but it does some great things mentally to get you guys focused and going forward. And so I'm a fan of it. I share it with my kids. I share it with others. It works for me. And again, for all of this stuff, the worst thing I think is being stuck in the mud with no mechanism to get out of the mud. You're not the first one, won't be the last one. Hopefully some of this inventory will help you, and if you find that due to no fault of your own, that your company is just not going to take and survive this event, Marla has a huge inventory of companies. I would urge you to take and have a discussion with Marla and go, all right, my business may not just make the cut. What am I going to do? What's next? And that would be a positive thing to understand what it might take. Past this, Marla, this is a sip from a fire hose. There's books and resources. The lady that provided the image, that was the start of this presentation, Kim Peterson Stone. She's a LinkedIn wizard, has like 250,000 people that follow her. She consults professionally. She said that I asked her if I could use some of her thoughts, and she said yes. And she said, furthermore, if anybody on this call would like to take and set up a time to visit with her, you can find her under Kim Peterson Stone, and it's Linkability is her company. And she said a 30-minute free consultation on LinkedIn. Phil Pelto is out at Denver. Phil Pelto put together a list he's got a company called My Firestorm. It's a bunch of networking groups. And Phil was kind enough to provide this document that has links to a whole bunch of various government sites, both in Colorado and outside of Colorado, on things you can look into. I am sure there's a lot of this out there, but I thought Phil did a pretty good job. And if you haven't talked to Phil sometime, wonderful individual, great at organizing meetup groups and so on. So I hope that this helps. It's really fast. We got lots to do. And I didn't want to take and cram a 20-minute presentation into a long period of time. And so if you guys have any questions, and Marla, if you want me to go through questions, I'd be glad to, or we'd just call it good and move on.
Wonderful. Thanks, Bob. And everyone, so that you know, I will make sure that I upload this to the landing page link like I've done for the last two webinars we've done this week, so that you can have access to this. And then once we're done with this webinar series, we'll put together kind of a e-guide, that will provide books, tools that are available to you, resources like Bob's presenting here. Take advantage of that LinkedIn. That's an incredible deal. Thank you for providing that. Does anyone have any questions? And while we're waiting, go ahead and post that if you do in the Q&A section down below. Bob, I have a question for you. I've actually got two.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm curious. You spend a lot of time talking with professionals and your customers. I think you're probably, out of everyone I know, one of the top 3 on communication. And so I'm curious, when you're talking with some of these people, what are some of the concerns you're hearing from them?
You'll have to laugh. I was afraid to look at my statement. I didn't think I'd have any money left. And I'm going, well, no, that's really not the case. I mean, and what I try to do is I'm really big on imagery. And so I spend a fair amount of time when I'm talking to the client, said, let's do a quick Zoom call. Let me show you what I'm seeing. And so what I do is, said, this is why we did what we did. This is where we're positioned right now, and this is what we're looking for. And this is where we're going to do the next step. And we've been doing that now for months. And so when you do that, it's really common ground for them. They see you, they see that you have a rationale behind the approach that you're taking. All right. And so once you get past that original part, and they'll go, a lot of times we go, what do you think? And I said, well, I think the news sells dark media all the time and bad news. And so, I'll talk to some of those things. And then when I'll ask them, because I'm interested in their opinion, I go, when all this is behind us, I said, what do you think's going to change? Is our healthcare system going to change? Is the political system going to change? Is outsourcing going to change? What do you see in your industry? And I ask them, where's the opportunity? And it reframes their thought process a lot of times when you ask them, where's the opportunity? Is there distressed assets? Is there going to be mineral rights in the oil field if you have companies having difficulty in the oil patch? Is farming going to go north or south? Are they going to repatriate? Is 5G going to be a big deal? Is there going to be a big infrastructure bill? Can you take and participate? So that's really what happens when I get that kind of question, Marla. Did that answer your question?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, there's, this is impacting everybody differently, even though we're in the same, boat, is the way I'm calling it. We all have different ways that this is affecting us. And so, I think that's a great positive way to look at the future. I know some of the business owners I'm talking to, some of the questions that are coming up is, man, when is this going to end? And, my canned answer is, we don't know, but we've just got to continue to push on, right? Just remain positive and weather the storm.
I think, for many people, you're going to have to, this is going to sound really bad. You got to think for yourself. Right now, all the data that's coming out on all the cases and infections and deaths and so on, I think the denominator is bad. And if you're math driven, you kind of go, what's the incidence or sample? And if they don't know, if they haven't tested everybody, they don't know. And so you'll have pockets, like we have a pocket in Colorado Springs, and they had a whole bunch of older people that are at a bridge center, and the person came in that was infected. And so we have one of the higher rates in Colorado because we had one bridge center with a bunch of at-risk people playing bridge and breathing on each other, I guess. And you go, well, that's challenging. And as you look at it and you think about what you're hearing, your first order of business, is there an agenda behind the commentary? Yes or no? Everybody has an agenda. Start looking for indicators and better data. And right now the data's all over the place. As they get better data, like they talk about flattening the curve and everybody's socially distancing, and what happens if the hydrochloroquine actually works? What does that do to the curve? I suspect a lot. So, and if you find yourself just going buggy by too much news consumption, quit. Go walk the dog. Go read something positive. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Bob. We really appreciate you taking the time today to talk with all of our business owners, and thank you for who you are, for giving back.
Well, I just hope that, that in all this process that there's something helpful. Like we were talking about before. I went through jump school in the military, and you stand in the door and you're creeped out when you're watching the world fly by your feet. And you kind of go, so what do you lean into? You lean into your discipline, you lean into your training, you lean into your equipment. I mean, you lean into all the stuff that you have faith and confidence in. And in this environment, you look at it and go, what was my ritual? What was my centering piece? What types of things made me successful up to this point? Lean into those things, execute those things really well, and squeeze the people that matter to you, for sure. So
that's for sure.
All right,
Awesome.
Marla. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for attending.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.